Hello, this is a video on how to play Backgammon. Some history on Backgammon. Backgammon is actually one of the oldest board games. Um, its history can be traced back nearly 5,000 years, and so it's one of the, I guess, first board games ever. Um, it's quite a simple and fun. It's a simple to understand, yet fun board game, and it's quite different from any other board game you may have played. And so it's a two-player game, and so it is strictly two-player. And so if you have more players or less players, you will probably have to play a different game. But the basic gist is simple. You need two players. You do need a backgammon board, which is identified as so. And you need 15 checkers per player and 2 dice per player. So in total, you need 4 dice. Checkers are the game pieces, like this and this, how that move around the board. The point is a space on the board, like so. The board is made up of 24 points, and so a point is these little triangles, and the board has 24 of them, 6 in each section. The middle bar is the bar in the middle of the game board, right here. And the home board are the 6 points on the bottom right of the playing board for each player. So this is the home board, and for this is the home board as well, depending on what player is playing where. Players sit across from each other, so notice how me and Bill are sitting across from each other. One player moves his checkers clockwise, and the other player moves his or her checkers counterclockwise. And so you put 5 checkers on the way you set up the board is you put 5 checkers on the 6th point, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 checkers on the 6th point. 3 checkers on the 8th point, 7, 8, and we have 3 checkers here. 5 checkers on the 13th point, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13, sorry. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It goes like this. So that's our 13th point. And then 2 checkers on the 24th point. And your opponent sets up his or her checkers to mirror your checkers. So if you have 2 checkers to start the game, your opponent on the opposite side should have 2 checkers. If you have 5 checkers in one point, on the opposite point, or a triangle, your opponent should also have 5 checkers. If you have 3 checkers on one point, on the opposite point or triangle, your opponent should also have 3 checkers. If you have 5 checkers on one point, on the opposite point or triangle, your opponent should also have 5 checkers. The objective of backgammon is to move your checkers around the board by rolling dice. The number rolled equals the number of points a checker can move. First, you move all your checkers to your home board, and then second, you move all your checkers off the board. The game begins with each player rolling 1 die. The player with the higher number rolled gets to use first dice for the first move. And so, since I rolled the higher number dice, not only do I get to go first, I use both dice for my first move. Each dice is moved separately and can be moved forward to any point that is not blocked. So notice that even though we roll 2 dice, they're used separately. So we can make 6 moves with one checker and 3 moves with another checker, or 6 moves with one checker and then 3 moves with that same checker. When your opponent has 2 or more checkers on a point, that point is blocked. That's a save point. So notice how my opponent has 2 or more checkers right here. I cannot move any checker there because that point is blocked and it is safe for my opponent. A point is open when that point has only your own checkers, no checkers, or only one opponent checker. So 2 or more checkers, and that point is blocked. You cannot move your checker there. When both dice are rolled, right, and so now we're just going to start out making, playing the game. Remember, the objective is to move your checkers around the board, trying to move all your checkers off the board. First, you want to move it to our home board. And so notice that our home board is over here. These 6 points are our home board. For my opponent, these 6 points are his home board. And so notice how we're trying to make our way around I am trying to make my way around the board like so. Bill is trying to make his way around the board like so. Each player makes their way around the board clockwise I mean, um, sorry, not clockwise. Um, so I'm moving counterclockwise here. Bill is moving uh, clockwise. And so one player will make his moves around the board clockwise, the other will make their moves around the board counterclockwise. That's just up for you to decide. And so notice how I'm moving counterclockwise here. And then Bill is moving clockwise. Right? And move. And so once again, we just want to roll a dice. The number on the dice corresponds to the number of moves we can make with the checkers. Our objective is to get all the checkers off the board. That's the essential basic essence of backgammon. It's quite a simple game. You want to get all your checkers off the board. The number you roll on the dice corresponds to the number of moves you can make in an attempt to get your checkers off the board. So we rolled a 6 and a 3. I'm actually going to move, if I move this one, no. Actually a bad combination. And so now it's Bill's turn. Bill rolled a 4 and a 4. When you roll doubles, you actually get to go twice. And so the value on your dice, you multiply that by 2, and that's how many moves you get to make. And so now it's our turn to roll dice. We're going to try to... no, let's just get there. So we're going to move 2 there. We're going to move 1, 2, 3 there, and then 2 more there. And so hopefully you can just sort of see how this is being played. It's quite a simple game. And so we're going to roll our dice here. Remember, you can only start... Okay, so let's just talk about the quick rundown of the game. The objective of the game is to get all of your all your checkers off the board by moving them corresponding to the number that you roll on your dice. And so we talked about the doubles. When both dice are rolled with the same number, the player will move double. For example, if double 4s are rolled, the player will move 4 points 4 times. Like my opponent did there. And I'm trying to find a quality. There's no open points, and so I cannot capture. But what would happen is when a player moves a checker onto a point that only has one checker, that only has one opponent checker, the opponent's checker is placed on the middle bar right here. Any checker on the middle bar has to be returned into play before making any other moves. A checker returns to the board on your farthest point, so your 24th point. And so if the opponent captured one of my checkers, sorry, not captured, I guess moved his checker onto a point that only had one of my checkers, so onto an open point with containing my checker. My checker would then be set into this middle bar right here, and then I would be sent to the 24th triangle. And so let's just go ahead and play. So let's see what we can do here. And so notice how we're just making moves here, right? Notice the sequences we're using. Double 8s. Notice how I'm trying to keep 2 on each thing to keep each point closed, keeping my pieces safe. And so you can sort of just see the basic essence of the game. It's quite a simple game. Just keep track of what I said about open and closed points. And so notice how I'm not able to move any of these pieces right now. And we'll talk about that later. But right now I'm just focused on moving all of my pieces here. So my piece got sent to the middle bar. And so why does this happen? When a player moves a checker onto a point that only has one opponent checker, notice how this point right over here only had one opponent checker. The opponent's checker is placed on the middle bar. Any checker on the middle bar has to be returned into play before making any other moves. And so I must return this checker into play, like so, before I make any other moves, starting from the 24th point. Notice how I got doubles? And so it's like I can move this and so that double was very beneficial for us, and we'll talk about why. And so you can sort of see how the game is playing. It's quite easy, guys. There's no real difficulty to it. And so let's just talk about what just happened here. I want to take a moment to pause and talk about that. And so once a player's checkers are all, so you move, what's the essence of backgammon? You roll the dice, you split the dice. The number on your dice corresponds to the number of moves you can make with the checker. You can only make a move onto an open checker. If you make a move onto an opponent's open checker, you capture their checker. It's forced to start from the beginning. A checker is open if there's only one checker of that color. If there are two or more, then it is closed. So that's the basic essence of the game, guys. It's very easy. But once a player's checkers are all within his or her home board, he or she can begin removing checkers off the board. The first player to remove all of his or her checkers off the board wins the game. So notice how once a player's checkers are all within their home board, right? And so your home board is your last 6 points opposite from your 24th point. So your first, in this case, this is our 24th point, so this would be my first 6 points. This was Bill's 24th point, so this would be his first 6 points. When you get all of your checkers within this region of your first 6 points, that means that all of your checkers are within your home board. This means you can then begin removing checkers off the board. And then now, if the first player to remove all their checkers off the board wins the game. And so I rolled double sixes. And so I'm actually just going to use one move right there. And use that other board move to rear my pieces off like so. And notice how he's just moving. So I'm going to move 2. I'm going to move 1, 2. Get that off my board. Or I can move 1, 2, 3, right? In this case, I'm going to move 1, 2. Get that off the board there. Here, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3. Like so. This is quite a simple game, honestly. There's no real difficulty to it. And once again, we roll double sixes. And let's talk about what to do. And so you saw how to play the game. I'm not going to sum it up again. It's quite easy. If not, you can just go back, and pause, and get a quick refresher. But essentially, you just want to get all your checkers into your home board and then begin removing them off the board. You get all your checkers into your home board by moving the checkers corresponding to the number of dots on the die. If a higher number is rolled than you have while removing checkers from the board, the farthest checker is to be removed. In this case, we removed 6, but there's no checker at the 6th spot here, right? If there was a checker here, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it would end up perfectly. However, that's not the case. So, if a higher number is rolled than you have a distance from the end of the board, the farthest checker is to be removed. In this case, this is the farthest checker, and so it's to be removed. Similarly, we rolled a 6, so the farthest checker is to be removed. We rolled a 6, the farthest checker. This is only a distance of 1, 2, therefore the farthest checker is to be removed. We rolled higher, we rolled a 3 and a 5. This is only 1 and a 2. We didn't roll any 2s, and so the farthest checker is to be removed. We rolled doubles, and so this is 1. We only need 1 here. But since we rolled the 2s here, right? Each dice is 2, and remember the movements are split up on the dice. We move the farthest dice into the end of the board. We move the farthest dice in the end of the board. Move the farthest dice in the end of the board. And so we won the game. And so the first player to remove all of his or her checkers off the board wins the game. And guys, that's basically how to play backgammon. It's quite a simple game. Let's just sum it up again. The objective of backgammon is to move your checkers around the board by rolling dice. The number rolled equals the number of points a checker can move. First, you move all your checkers to your home board. And then second, you move all your checkers off the board. The game begins with each player rolling 1 die. The player with the higher number rolled gets to use both dice for the first move. Each dice is moved separately and can be moved forward to any point that is not blocked. When your opponent has 2 or more checkers on a point, that point is blocked. If the point has your own checkers, no checkers, or only one opponent checker, the point is open. When both dice are rolled with the same number, the player will move double. For example, if double 3s are rolled, the player will move 3 points 4 times. When a player moves a checker onto a point that only has one opponent checker, the opponent's checker is placed on the middle bar. Any checker on the middle bar has to be returned into play before making any other moves. A checker returns to the board on your farthest point. Once a player's checkers are all within his or her home board, he or she can begin removing checkers off the board. The first player to remove all of his or her checkers off the board wins the game. If a higher number is rolled than you have while removing checkers from the board, the farthest checker is to be removed. And so that's the basic essence of the game. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned how to play backgammon.